Natalie Jones. I'm a member of the London Assembly and also of the House of Lords, and I'd like to welcome you here today. This is a great place to have our campaign launch because it's a very forward-thinking, visionary place and organisation, and that's how we see the Green Party as well. Now, you're going to hear a little bit today about our campaign and the number of people that we have involved. This is an absolute record for us. As an old-time Green Party member, it's been absolutely incredible to watch the Greens surge. It's been a thoroughly rewarding experience as well, because of course we're getting in people with huge talents. And here in London, for example, we have 10,000 members now, which is absolutely incredible. This bodes well not only for the general election that's coming up very soon, but also, of course, for next year's elections here in London, which will be for the Assembly and the Mayor. I'm going to introduce our stars today, and you're going to hear first Natalie Bennett, who is the leader of the Green Party, and who has been absolutely crucial, pivotal, in getting these new members. I think her getting out and about all over Britain has meant that people have had a chance to hear what the Green Party has to offer. So here's Natalie Bennett.
Well, thank you very much, and it's lovely to see everybody here today. The crowd in this room reminds me of many rooms that I've seen around the country. It's part of, as Jenny said, is the Green Surge, and yes, that is the hashtag. But it's clear that something even bigger than the Green Surge is happening in British politics. A really profound change is happening in British politics. The old way of doing things is falling apart. What we're seeing is the politics of hope is rising, and it's triumphing over the politics of fear. The Green Party wants a political system that delivers for the common good, not just for the few. And it's very clear that that's what the British public also wants. Our membership numbers have soared. I keep struggling to keep up with this, but the latest figure I have is 54,500 members just in England and Wales alone. We're polling at levels that we haven't seen in a generation. And what I find out there when I speak to the public, as the public starts to hear our message, is that more and more people are becoming supporters, becoming voters, becoming members. This is going to be our biggest, boldest campaign ever. And I'm proud to announce, to be able to say that certainly, for certain, nearly 90% of people in England and Wales will have a local Green candidate in the general election. There will be at least 509 general election candidates. Now, if we look back a scant 6 months ago, we actually set a target then of 75% of seats. And a lot of people said, gosh, that's being ambitious. But since the Green surge, since the growth in support, we're now getting to that 90% figure. This is going to be our biggest, boldest campaign ever, and it's a terribly exciting time to be part of the Green Party. And we've got such a wonderful range of candidates around the country. Unfortunately, we can't fit them all in the room today. The fact is, people have been abandoned by politics as it is now. The scandals of the past few days are just a symptom of a broader, deeper, longer malaise in British politics. We, today, are not launching our manifesto. What we're launching is our campaign, the campaign with all of these candidates. And what we're identifying are the top themes of this campaign. And those themes are, first of all, a fair economy. We need a society in which a job doesn't just pay a living wage as a matter of course, but in which you can have a sense of security and certainty about the future from your job. We need an NHS that's a public NHS, a publicly owned and publicly run NHS in which the profit motive has no place. We need decent, affordable homes. At the moment, far too many people, Shelter had a figure, 11% of households in January weren't sure that they were going to be able to pay their rent or mortgage. That kind of uncertainty and fear simply can't continue. We need a safe climate. We have to act now on climate change to cut our greenhouse gas emissions, to stop trashing the planet, destroying our biodiversity, leaving our oceans in an immensely unhealthy state, creating a whole world that's not fit to live in. And we need free education. We cannot continue to leave our young people weighed down with the weight of a debt that they're never going to be able to repay. And we need a schooling system that's fit for purpose under local democratic control. These are huge aspirations, aspirations for real change. But it's very clear that business as usual politics simply isn't an option. The status quo cannot continue. We're offering the voters of Britain bold alternatives. And the future of politics is in their hands in May. They have a real choice to vote for change. And what we're asking them today is to grasp the opportunity and vote Green in May. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Natalie. Our next speaker is obviously our first MP, and she's been Parliamentarian of the Year, I think, twice. Only twice. Can't win all the time. It's Caroline Lucas, who has been the most amazing MP, working at national level, but also being a very good local MP for Brighton Pavilion as well. So, Caroline Lucas.
Well, thank you so much, Jenny. Thank you, Natalie. I'm really honoured to be able to say a few words really about the difference that just one MP can make. So when I was elected back in 2010, people would say, well, you're just one MP, what can you do? And I hope that I have been able to demonstrate with my track record that even one MP, when they're working very hard, can make a difference. I think that I've been able to put issues on the political agenda, get them much higher up that political agenda than they would have been without having a Green MP in Parliament. I'm thinking of things like the incredibly important priority of recognising that we need to leave 80% of known fossil fuel reserves in the ground if we're to have any hope of avoiding catastrophic climate change. That is a fact which the other parties simply don't like to admit because of the implications of admitting it. We are not afraid to put that on the table and say that that is the centre point of our policies on climate, on energy, on the economy, and the rest of our policy manifesto. Championing a complete ban on fracking. We know that fracking is massively unpopular across the country. We also know it's incredibly perverse to be setting up a whole new fossil fuel industry in this country at exactly the time that the scientists from the UN downwards are telling us we need to shift to a cleaner, greener energy source. I'm thinking of things like proposing the bill, the private members' bill that I will be speaking to at the end of this month that would bring rail back into public ownership. That is an incredibly popular policy right across the country. None of the other parties have the courage to say we should be bringing rail back into public ownership. Why does that require courage? Actually, I'm not sure. It's a no-brainer. When the East Coast Main Line was in public hands, it had higher punctuality and higher passenger satisfaction rates than when it was in the private sector. And yet what does the government do? Well, it gets it back into the private sector as soon as possible because it's embarrassed by a good example. If we were to take back the private franchises as they expire, it's been estimated we could save around £1 billion a year because you wouldn't have the fragmentation that's involved in a privatised rail system and you wouldn't have the profits going out to the pockets of shareholders. You'd have that money going back into the rail system. As a result, we could bring rail fares down as well as be investing back into that rail system. The Green Party in Parliament has been just about a lone voice in terms of the nationwide parties that has been opposing this government's incredibly cruel and indeed economically illiterate austerity programme. And I'm proud to have been one of those MPs that has stood up to say no to the government when they've been trying to make some of the poorest people in the country pay the highest price for an economic crisis that was certainly none of their making. Making the case as well, as no other nationwide party will do, that spending £100 billion on replacing Trident nuclear weapons is morally obscene and also reflects a complete misunderstanding of where the real security threats come from in today's world. And finally, as Natalie said, protecting the NHS, being a clear voice saying that the NHS needs to be in public hands. And later this month, I hope to be proposing an NHS reinstatement bill, which would basically reposition the NHS fully in public hands. So I think that a track record of putting things on the political agenda and then also working in the committees, for example, I'm a member of the Environmental Audit Committee, and have been instrumental in that committee, for example, proposing a complete moratorium on drilling in the Arctic, and indeed a complete moratorium on fracking. I'm the chair of the all-party group on fuel poverty and energy efficiency, and again, a voice that is out there saying that it is absolutely perverse that this government is the first government that is actually overseeing a situation where we have no taxpayer-funded energy efficiency and insulation schemes in people's homes at exactly the time when we know maybe up to 20,000 people will die prematurely in one of the richest countries in the world simply because they can't afford to keep their homes warm. I've had adjournment debates on everything from sexism and no more page 3 through to my call for mandatory PSHE, personal, social, health and economic education in all schools. I was honoured to receive the MP of the Year award last year for my work with marginalised and deprived communities. And one of the things I found most satisfying in my time as an MP has been that behind-the-scenes work in the constituency, helping constituents, supporting them, getting a better deal for my constituents in Brighton Pavilion. But I just want to end by saying a few words about this election. I think it's going to be an incredibly exciting election. Greens have got a bigger role than ever to play. Politics is wide open, with the polling suggesting that no single party will win a majority next time around. And so the role of the so-called smaller parties, actually we're getting bigger by the day, more members now than the Lib Dems or UKIP, but the role of the so-called smaller parties will be more crucial than ever. Greens have been very clear that we would never support a Conservative government, nor would we enter into a formal coalition with any party. I think the experience of the Lib Dems over the past few years demonstrates the dangers of both losing your identity and indeed your integrity. But we would be open to supporting a minority Labour government on a case-by-case basis, working with parties like the SNP and Plaid Cymru, with whom we already have a formal arrangement in the European Parliament. We would form a progressive alliance which could put real pressure on a minority Labour government and which would be able to get things like bigger discussion on a ban on fracking. We would be able to get that as a clear thing on the agenda of a future government. Major investment in green energy and energy efficiency, scrapping Trident, getting rid of the worst aspects of austerity, and indeed promoting voting reform. We're not in the business here of talking about red lines, but what we do want to do is give a sense of the kind of policies that people can expect from having more Green MPs in Parliament. We believe these are the kinds of issues that people really care about around the country. That is why we are seeing this Green surge. And I hope I've been able to say a little bit about just what one Green MP could do. And what I look forward to is having people like Darren alongside me from Bristol West as we increase the number of MPs and therefore have far more weight behind these kinds of ideas which are increasingly popular right across the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. Our final speaker is Darren Hall, and I'm going to have to read out a little bit about him, if I can find it, because he's so unusual for a Green. Although I say that not knowing the new 30,000 new members. He's a former RAF engineering officer who then worked for the Home Office for 10 years in crime reduction and drugs treatment, which sounds pretty good. He transferred into local government to become the manager of Bristol Green Capital Partnership. So he's been working in the green fields for a long time now. And of course, he is our next MP for Bristol West, Darren Hall.
Thank you, Jenny. It's a real honour to be here alongside Natalie and Caroline today to help launch our campaign. And of course, a huge privilege to be standing for the Green Party in Bristol West. If someone had told me a year ago that I'd be standing here today, I would absolutely not have believed them. But here I am, representing one of 12 target seats across the UK. But more importantly, representing the many thousands of people who are working so hard to elect more Green MPs. Natalie talked about the Green Surge. Well, I am one of those people, one of those members of the Green Surge, one of those many thousands who've realised just how important the Green Party is to UK politics. That realisation prompted me last May to join the party, and subsequently I was honoured to be elected to stand in Bristol West. But I'm neither a lifelong politician nor what many would regard as a deep green person. I'm simply someone who cares passionately about the environment and also feels a deep disquiet about the levels of inequality that we see in our society. But I'm also really disappointed about the way in which so many people feel let down by our Westminster politicians. So like many others, I've joined the Green Party to fight for real change in UK politics. How is it going? Well, the last time I checked the bookies, I'd gone from 100 to 1 to 7 to 2. So they think it's going in the right direction. I've even had my first political cartoon drawn of me, and more surreal was a politics student bringing a copy for me to autograph. But the reality is the campaign trail has included street stalls, residents' meetings, hustings, and visits to lots of people's homes. And I have to say that so far, the response has been overwhelmingly positive. My opponents, of course, refer to old results and claim that the Greens can't win in Bristol West, but the world and the city of Bristol has changed a great deal. It has moved on. And I am confident that the voters of Bristol West and in constituencies across the whole of the UK are set to vote for a party that offers a real alternative. I'm campaigning for a living wage that lifts people in Bristol out of working poverty. I'm campaigning for a public NHS, not only protected from cuts and privatisation, but strengthened and adapted for the 21st century. If elected, I will be fighting for local powers that will enable Bristol to sort out its air quality and its traffic problems, and to have a public transport system we can be genuinely proud of. And of course, I am fighting this election because I believe that my generation has a duty to protect our planet for future generations. That is why I am standing for the Green Party, because they are the only political party in the UK that has the courage to stand firm on its values. The only political party that has a vision for the future that sets our place within our world rather than as masters over it. They are the only political party that is prepared to prioritise the long-term challenges over short-term vested interests. The most engaging thing for me about this process is not just the feeling that comes from campaigning for something that I believe in, but to be doing it alongside so many other people that believe in it too. It's incredibly empowering to give voice to those who have been campaigning for so long before me, to those who feel they have no voice or that they have no reason to vote. It's amazing to be in politics at a time when people are realising there is a real, principled alternative to politics as usual. This election will prove that it is still possible for politicians to be courageous in opposition. We will prove that there is a party that stands up for the people abandoned by government. And we will prove that the Green Party isn't just a one-seat wonder. We're growing, we're surging, and soon we will be winning.